And then also we've had cops come in now and they've raided
Yeah.
the car yard, and that was when you were sent to court a number of times.
Yeah. So you didn't have to be Einstein to see that this wrecking yard was operating 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
The coppers would drive past and think, what's going on in there? And after numerous police raids, and each time the coppers would find drugs, I was sentenced to 12 months in prison.
And it was pretty lenient sentence, wasn't it? Based
It,
on
it was, so one thing I didn't talk about is after my daughter died, I'd had 5 suicide attempts. And that's how low my life got. Like for a long period of time, I'd wake up in the morning and try and think of a way that I was going to top myself. I tried numerous ways, and how I sit here today and have this conversation, I will never know. But I'm ever so grateful that I did survive that. But you know, the judge was very empathetic when she had heard what I had been through. She deliberated on the case over a 2-month period. Once she heard all the evidence and the prosecutor, and I was sentenced to 12 months. I was expecting 3 to 5 years. Um, I deserved to go to jail because I was breaking the law. So I have no qualms about going to jail at all.
I think what saved you is kind of your willingness to be rehabilitated.
Yeah.
But also, I guess, your character. And you talk about this, but you never really did much during your time being a kickboxing athlete. A lot of what you did was you were a homebody. You didn't go out partying too much. You rarely took any, might have taken illicit drugs on 1 or 2 occasions when you were out, but you really stayed out of trouble for most part of your life. So it wasn't like you're a repeat offender, were you?
Yeah, I was never ever interested in trouble. And, even the times where I had gone out and I'd go out with my kickboxing friends, some of them were of a different opinion that they could cause trouble and, and do some damage. And I was always the opposite. I would just leave them there because that was not my thing. My thing was always doing the right by people.
Yeah.
I would try and help people even on my worst day.
Do you think it was kind of like because of that, the lack of exposure and experience to those drugs, it was like a baptism of fire? You got your first puff of that ice and then you were hurled in and you didn't quite know how to manage things in that car yard and, being able to cover that up.
Yeah, I think being introduced to a whole new breed of people who I have never, people that you only hear about, people that I only imagined. Like I got ripped off. I'll never forget this. I got ripped off. I sold some drugs or some ice to a 75-year-old man,
Wow.
right? And he ripped me off, right? Because never in a million years would I have thought that someone of that age could rip somebody off, right? But you know, along the way, I heard all the stories in the world. I had another guy who I thought was a fairly decent guy who used to come in with his son, and he ran up his son was about 9 or 10 years old. He ran up a fairly decent debt, and one day he came in crying, telling me that he couldn't pay the debt because his son had just died, and he needed to pay. He needed to pay for a funeral. And me being me said, look, don't worry about what you owe me, and here's a couple of grand towards the funeral, right? About 6 weeks later, I pull up at the service station, and there he is with his son, right? So I'm thinking, when you're in the depth of depression and people run rings around you like that, you start to think very little of yourself, I can tell you.
Yeah, and throughout that time, so all this time you've had your divorce, you've had to sell the family house, correct? And
Yep.
all your cars and possessions and things as well. Your son, and your children, you're not really taking much of a part in their lives. You know, you've met this new partner as well, who was on ice as well. So, and you said this become a really toxic relationship.
Yes.
That made things worse, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Again, you know, your whole life just changes. The people that are good for you in your life, you push away, and it seems like you just surround yourself by other people, other drug users. You know, and along the way, I entered a numerous relationships, but one in particular with a lady who was still using drugs, and today we have a son together.